So the main thing for us was to give a flavor of not the Alps that everyone imagined. So everyone imagined the Alps like higher hiking, but we wanted to go through vineyards and apple orchard. And it's exactly what we managed to do. So starting from the main city of Aosta, you just walk through beautiful vineyards and apple orchards, and then you reach the highest vineyards in Europe, which is the one of the Pré Blanc in Morges. So,
Okay.
and reaching Courmayeur at the end. So you start from Aosta, and after 7 nights, you reach Courmayeur.
Fascinating people with stories to share, fabulous wines and the best local foods to accompany them, and beautiful places to discover and visit. All of this and more on Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast. Join me for a new episode every Tuesday. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today we travel to Piedmont, to the Western Alps not far from Torino, to the small comune of Torre Pellice, to meet my guests, husband and wife team, James MacNay, IWA, and Cinzia Long, who own and run a specialist travel company that offers walking and wine tours in Piedmont, Valle d'Aosta, Liguria, as well as throughout Italy. James and Cinzia, prior to moving to Piedmont, lived and worked in East Sussex, England, where they founded and ran Cuccolo Cheese and Wine, a popular retail outlet that specializes above all in Italian wines, as well as an outstanding cheese counter that Cinzia oversaw. James and Cinzia, many thanks for being our guests this morning. How are you both today?
We're very well, thanks. Yeah, it's lovely to be here with you.
Good. Well, nice to see you, James. I'm not sure when we last met, James. Was it at Vinitaly, maybe? I don't think we've seen each other since then.
I think it was, yeah. By coincidence, we happened to get seats next to each other on the plane going out.
Yeah, that's right. That was amazing. Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, for our listeners who are located, as you know, all around the world, can you tell us where you are? Can you describe this beautiful corner of Italy under the Alps where you decided to move to start the next chapter of your lives together?
Yeah, so we live in a corner of Piemonte, which is in northwest Italy. And we live in a valley of the Western Alps called the Val Pellice, which is named after the river Pellice. And specifically, we live in the town of Torre Pellice. And Torre Pellice is one of those old Piemontese towns whose history stretches back hundreds of years. And Cinzia's family is originally from here. She still has family here. And that's one of the reasons that we live here, just to be close to the family. We have a young son, so it's good for him to be close to his relatives as well.
How old is your son?
He's 13 now. Yeah,
okay.
He's taller than me. Big lad. He's called Carlo. So when we were planning our move from England to Italy, we decided we wanted to be close to Cinzia's family for that reason. And the town is nestled in a valley of the Western Alps. You mentioned Turin, and that is indeed the nearest large city, but we're actually closer to the French border than we are to Turin.
So you are in the Western Alps, and I'm just thinking that when some of our listeners have been to Alba, to Barolo, to the Barolo wine zones, and looking across, you can actually see the snow-covered mountains of the Western Alps stretching out. It's a beautiful area. It's an area I've explored a little bit, both for skiing, but also in search of cheese. A little bit further down from you, Castelmagno cheese. But we'll talk about cheese in a little bit more detail, Cinzia. Tell us your story then, Cinzia. You're from Piedmont, but you grew up in Valle d'Aosta. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely, Mark. So my parents were born here in a house in Torre Pellice, but then for working reasons, they moved to Valle d'Aosta before I was born. So basically, I grew up in, don't know if you know Cervinia, where there is the Matterhorn. So I grew up at the foothill of the Cervino, specifically in Val Tournanche, which is the main village because it's not a town. And yes, I absolutely loved it. I loved skiing and winter, the snow, and the summer hiking. So, therefore, my passion for nature, for even cheeses, because I always loved cheeses since I was little, and all that. That's why I studied forestry in Turin University.
Okay, so you were probably skiing almost as early as you could walk.
Yes, actually, they put the first skis, they were, the plastic skis. I put them when I was
Yes.
two.
Oh
So
my
I was
goodness.
two.
Wow. That's amazing.
And yeah,
Yeah, Valle d'Aosta, it's such a beautiful region underneath, really, really tucked on underneath the mountains. And I know that some of your walking tours take in this special area, so we'll talk about that a bit too. James, you were teaching English in La Spezia. I met one of your students last week, Matteo Bonanini. And what brought you to Italy in the first place?
Just chance, really, Mark. I didn't choose to come to Italy. When I finished university, I wanted to travel and I needed to earn some money while I did that. And the obvious thing that presented itself to me was to teach English as a foreign language. So I did my qualification and happened to be offered a job in La Spezia by an agency that posts teachers all over the world. And the moment I arrived, I was absolutely smitten by it. It's a city at the head of a beautiful gulf, the Gulf of Poets, as they call it, because Shelley and Byron lived there, and Shelley indeed died there. And I spent a lot of time in the Cinque Terre, cycling, walking, and just generally visiting. So it's an area that's very close to my heart.
What did you study?
English and history at university.
English and history.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, in
Good.
Bristol.
That's similar to me. And so you came to La Spezia. I hadn't been to La Spezia until last week, and indeed I was only there really passing through on the train. But I was up in the hills. I think it was Caniglia with Walter de Batte,
Mm.
looking down on La Spezia and looking down on the coast leading down to Porto Venere, and that coastline, of course, being an extension, really a far end of the Cinque Terre, with the trains connecting so easily from La Spezia. But it did look a beautiful city, an historic city, a city that, of course, was once very important economically with the arsenale and the repair of ships. So still quite a big
Yeah,
city.
yeah, it is a historic city, and it's an important port. It has a mercantile port and a merchant port, and still has a military port. And in fact, Cinzia's dad did his military service back in the what would have been 50s
yeah.
in La Spezia, and it remains an important military naval base even now. And it's one of those cities that's just a really bustling city. People don't necessarily go there for a holiday, particularly, but there's so much going on. You can really get some under your skin, and it's a really fine place. I enjoy going back there.
Yeah, I just had a good feeling in the brief time that we were there, and it is somewhere that I think would be worth exploring. How long were you there for, James?
Just 1 year.
And Cinzia, did you meet James in La Spezia?
No, actually, I met him afterwards because we were both working in the tourism industry. Because, of course, I grew up not only, so I studied forestry, but I grew up in a touristic area. So even before I finished university, I was already working for the tourist consortium and for the tourist office. So the tourism is in my blood, and is what I like to do,
Okay.
connected to
And
nature
that
as
was in
well.
Valle d'Aosta.
Yes, he was in Cervinia, and then I worked as well at the. I don't know if you know the Rifugio Capanna Margherita, the highest managed hut in Europe
I've heard
on
of
the
that.
Mont
Yes, I've
Rose.
heard of that. Yeah. Somewhere I
So
would like to visit. Yes.
beautiful. So
Yeah.
I did that a season as a cook. I can't call myself a
Oh,
chef, but because we use a lot of tins and cans. But I did do a season there, and so tourism is in my background. So I met James in Oxford
okay.
actually because after university I wanted to learn English because I am bilingual French. And so at the time, my ex was working in England, in Oxfordshire. and I moved there to learn English. And then I was looking for a job, and I met James in Oxford during it was a training course for a walking company.
Oh, amazing. Okay. Okay. Which would have, yeah, so that interest between the two of you was immediately shared. But you then moved to East Sussex. Is that when you began the Cuccolo business?
Yes, James can tell you more about that.
Well,
About
we
it.
so we did
Yes.
a few seasons working as walking tour guides, and so we lived in different places: Liguria, Tuscany, Umbria, and at a certain point, wanted to settle down a bit because walking tourism guiding is a wonderful adventure, but you have to up sticks every 6 months and find a different job because it's seasonal. And so, yeah, that's when we moved back to the area where I had grown up, which is well, actually Tunbridge Wells in Kent, first of all. And then we were importing some wine, which is really where my interest, the point at which my professional interest in wine began. And then through contacts, discovered that what was Heathfield Deli in East Sussex, the town of Heathfield in East Sussex, was up for sale, and we thought that sounded like a good idea. And so, yeah, that's when we started in Heathfield, and then changed the name of the business after a couple of years to Cuccolo Cheese and Wine.
Okay. And so you were specializing in Italian wine then, James. Is that right? In importing direct, that's not easy to do.
No, it's not. I had developed an interest while I was tour guiding because we were taking clients to visit wineries, and that was really where my interest started. And I thought I'd have a go at importing because Italian wine from the very beginning for me was absolutely fascinating. And so I thought I'd give it a go at importing. And it was difficult. I mean, we did it for 3 years, lost a bit of money in the first 2 years, then broke even by the third. But that's the point at which the shop came into our lives, Cuccolo. And so we transferred from importing and distribution to retail.
Okay. Okay. Yes, I've lost a little bit of money for importing as well, which, but had some very good wines to drink. And Cinzia, your love of cheese then translated into developing a magnificent cheese counter.
Yes, I did actually, and it's still there. So Cuculo Cheese and Wine is still there. And my passion, really, as I said, came since I was little. I always loved cheeses. So at Cuculo, I was able really to develop that. So I do like good cheese, not just any cheese. So for me, cheese need to be well made and tasty, and they need to say something as well, something interesting. Normally, the producers they say something about that. So I started to look for especially local cheeses in East Sussex where we lived, so around Heathfield. There were five dairies, very good dairies, and I started to buy from them, and then I started to learn because, to be honest, my background is in forestry and tourism. And so I did take one exam at university about alpine cheeses, but this was just about it. And then I developed my passion. So good, especially cheeses made with raw milk. This is what I believe in.
Okay, and actually, you would have been developing this at a moment when there's been a real renaissance in British cheeses. I live in Devon, and we have
Mm.
a remarkable collection of small dairies, artisan producing beautiful cheeses of every single style and type, including even mozzarella di bufala from Somerset. So it's been a real moment for here in the UK for the development of a wonderful range of cheeses. But I'm wondering, were you also at Cuccolo bringing in artisan Italian cheeses?
Yes, we were. And I was especially before Brexit, to be honest, where in a way was easier. I'm not saying it's impossible now, but the small dairies, especially dairies that they produce more interesting cheeses, Italian I'm talking, they are not able to import in the UK or to export in this case from here big pallets of cheeses, if you see what I mean. It was just part of pallets. And nowadays is quite expensive with all the documents that they have to do. So after Brexit, I noticed that I wasn't able to find more interesting cheeses. So it's just the bigger producer, they can import just big pallets, otherwise it's impossible.
Yes, that's another one of the things that we lost because of Brexit. I know that certainly for small wine producers, the paperwork
Mm.
has become, well, there was quite a lot before, but it's certainly become even more difficult. James, tell us about the wine list you built up at Kukula. What were your main enthusiasms? Did you have particular areas that you have always been passionate about or interested in and knowledgeable about, or were you trying to be embracing all of Italy?
At Cuccolo, I was trying to build a comprehensive list of Italian wines, single estate Italian wines of particularly high quality and benchmark wines. I didn't have a particular area of specialization other than perhaps Valle d'Aosta, because the wines of Valle d'Aosta, as I'm sure you know, Mark, are really delicious, high quality, but very hard to find. So we were one of a very small number of sources for the wines of the Valle d'Aosta. But yeah, my ambition with the portfolio at Cuccolo was to provide the full picture of Italian wines. Since
Okay.
then, because we live in Piemonte, I've become much more specialised in the wines of Piemonte.
Of course, of course. And it was through this that you decided to study to become an Italian wine ambassador.
Yes, I was working in the shop and selling wine in the shop and studying on my own account, just to build my own knowledge for myself and my customers, and to increase the range and the quality of the wine that we were selling. And then in COVID, during lockdown, I thought, well, I'd better do something about formalizing my knowledge and my experience. And so I did WSET level 2 with the Sussex Wine School, Johnny Gibson, and then went on to level 3. And then also with Johnny, I did the Sussex Wine School, I did the Italian Wine Scholar exams.
Hmm.
So they're the two exams, the Unit 1 and Unit 2. And then I got introduced to a company who were, by this time, we were already building our walking business here in Italy. I was doing both simultaneously for a year or two. And I became introduced to a wine importer who wanted to organize trips for their own customers. And they asked me to do that. But they required me to have a they initially asked me to become a master of wine, which I said was quite a big stretch to do in a short space of time. But I had heard about the Italian wine ambassador, and I presented that to them, and they said how good it looked, and it looked good to me as well. So, and that's when I decided to do it.
Okay. Well, it certainly is a rigorous qualification,
It
and
sure is, yeah, yeah.
I'm sure you found that it was a very worthwhile path to pursue.
One of the great pleasures of my professional career was doing the course, both the background material, which is incredibly intense and dense, and the course itself. And since then, the network of friends and colleagues that we have around the world, it's a fantastic thing.
Yes, indeed. And it's certainly one of the huge benefits is this great community that we all become part of, which is how we met. Now, you decided to move to Italy. Was that a difficult decision and then start this new business, MacNay Travel and Wine? Tell us about why you decided to do that and tell us about the business.
Was it a difficult decision? I wouldn't say so. We had always wanted to moved back to Italy, and over the years, our thoughts had turned back to our walking tour guiding days. So on certain rainy days in January in Sussex, looking out of the window onto the high street was our imagination would wander back to the hills of Piedmont and the mountains of the Valle d'Aosta. Then it was just the final decision was made as a confluence of events, really. COVID was one of them. Unfortunately, Cinzia got quite ill from COVID, and that changed our calculus. And also, Carlo was growing. When we moved, he was in his last year of primary school, and I always felt that if we were going to move, that was the year to do it. So he would have 1 year to get his feet under the table in the Italian schooling system before being thrown into secondary school. and a couple of other reasons as well. And in the meantime, I had been researching and developing walking routes already just for 3 or 4 years by then. And so everything came together, and the decision in the end, when it came, was actually pretty easy. So, to tell you a little bit about MacNay Travel and Wine, this business brings together our interests and professional experience going back to our walking tour guiding days and our knowledge of and roles in the Italian wine industry and the cheese sector as well. What we do brings all of those aspects together.
It does sound like you're creating walking tours that our listeners will find of real interest because you're combining, as you say, nature, walks, culture, wine, and food, and that's really at the heart of, I think, what the Italian Wine podcast is all about. Cinzia, one of your most popular tours is the Heart of the Italian Alps. Just to give a flavor of a MacNay Travel and Wine tour, can you tell us about this tour? To sort of describe what someone would expect to have on this tour.
So the main thing for us was to give a flavor of the not the Alps that everyone imagine. So everyone imagine the Alps like higher hiking, but we wanted to go through vineyards and apple orchard. And it's exactly what we managed to do. So starting from the main city of Aosta, which is the Roman city of Aosta Pretoria. You just walk through beautiful vineyards and apple orchards, and then you reach at the end of this is a self-guided walk. Self-guided means that we don't walk with you, but we are in the background if you want. So if someone needs, there is a telephone number, but also people, they can start at their own pace. So we give all the information, all the directions. We book all the hotels, the accommodations, which are all in lovely settings. And then we move as well the suitcases to people. So if someone doesn't really want to walk, they can always come with us and a suitcase, and then we give them a lift. Or we can always be on the other end of the phone. So we said apple orchards and vineyards, reaching the highest vineyards in Europe, which is the one of the Pré Blanc in Morges. So,
Okay.
and reaching Courmayeur at the end. So you start from Aosta, and after 7 nights, you reach Courmayeur. Courmayeur is the last stop. With if people want, they can go as well. Included in the tour, there is the Mont Blanc, the Skyway, which is the lift to go
Oh,
higher
of
up on the
course.
Mont Blanc,
Yes.
which is a beautiful
Yes. Yes.
thing. So it's really an insight of a different Valle d'Aosta. It's not, the winter one where you go just skiing on the slopes. You just walk, and especially for people that are interested in wine, if you can walk into the terroir, you understand better the wine and the winemakers as well, because there are as well some wine tasting. So this, I think, is what it is, with amazing views to the Mont Blanc at some point from La Salle. There is this opening views, and you see this majestic mountain, and it's just say, wow, this is.
Yeah, no, I'm picturing that, and I'm just thinking that that sounds like a really nice pace going up to Courmayeur from
Mm.
Aosta. Not too many miles a day, but with stops at wine producers, turning around to admire that magnificent view as one goes up the valley, and stopping here and there. I'm imagining as well suggestions of where to stop for lunches.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So normally the self-guided, normally people, they buy their own picnic. It depends as well. Some days, like the first days is a shorter one. So there is the opportunity to, if someone starts early, this it depends on people. But if you start early, arrive for lunch, for example, in Eimaville. Eimaville, there is a beautiful castle, and there is a lovely enoteca where they have nice glasses of wine and a nice plate of hot food if someone wants. Otherwise, just a nice panino or something to buy in Aosta. We do suggest places to buy a nice picnic and to have it en route, maybe by a vineyard or where there are some picnic spots. There are plenty of places.
Okay, that sounds lovely. And then what are the hotels like then? Are they small family hotels mainly?
Yes, we always try to find family-run businesses where people they can be comfortable and looked after very well, always with a smile. And this is what we do and we try to do, because it's not always possible. Sometimes you need to go in slightly bigger places. But for example, in La Salle, we always trying to give a mix between a smaller family-run businesses and then maybe something a little bit more, shall we say, classy, a little bit more with more star. Like in La Salle, there is the Relais Mont Blanc, which is a 5-star hotel. So, a 5 stars, you have a different, it might not be so personal like it could be in Aimaville, but is an amazing place with a spa, with a lovely swimming pool, with a view to the Mont Blanc. Just to give people a
Oh my
rest day
goodness. Yeah.
with this incredible, because it's a 2-night stop, just to give a rest to the legs, to the muscles, and this amazing view.
That sounds wonderful. And I like the
Mhm.
contrast between just simple picnics, a panino, a glass of wine, and more rustic foods in some places, and more fine dining elegance in somewhere like the Relais. It sounds a wonderful mix. And I
Yeah.
also like the idea of that you don't have to carry anything but a day pack. The luggage is being transported. And indeed, if one gets a little tired, then you could be transported as well. James, what are some of the other popular destinations that you do? And do you both still do some guided tours as well as the self guided?
So in Piemonte, we have 3 trips in the Langhe Roero Monferrato. By trips, I mean self guided walking. And the most recent one that we launched of those, which was this year, has been one of the most popular trips in terms of bookings for us. And it goes from Bra to Alba and traverses the incredible sandstone canyons of the Roque del Roero and the vineyards of the central Roero. Stops in at a couple of really quite famous wineries who also have accommodation. So Tenuta Carretta, which is a 15th century establishment that has a Michelin star restaurant and hotel run by a fantastic restaurateur hotelier called Flavio Costa. He's originally from Genova, so he specializes in seafood in his restaurant, funnily enough, and proceeds on to Villa Tiboldi, which is the villa associated with the Malvira winery in Canale. And we recently discovered Hotel Garibaldi in the town of Cisterna d'Asti, and that is a really old building. It's all wooden floors, wooden ceilings. It's got a fabulous old wood burner in the corner. Simple rooms, but a fantastic restaurant where I recently had the full fritto misto di carne alla piemontese, which is the really traditional fried meat with apple and semolina dolce, sweet semolina, and an amaretto biscuit also fried. So we had frog's legs and bone marrow and brain and liver. Amazing meal.
And coxcomb, I think, is in that as well.
I don't think we had it this dish, but yeah, it is the traditional one of the
Oh,
traditional
yes.
ingredients. It is, yeah, yeah. Um,
Yes.
so, but and Cinzia's
Yeah.
vegetarian, so she was a bit
No, I'm
slightly
pescatarian
well
actually.
pescatarian.
Mm.
Yes, she eats
Oh,
fish, but
yeah.
she looked at this menu and thought, "Oh, there might not be anything for me." But then she was delighted to see that
Yeah.
there were tagliarine, the traditional Piemontese
And
pasta
Yes,
with
yes.
the
with
despair of my family, I am.
yeah, the despair of your family with with fungi porcini, which of course is just coming into season now. So she was
Of
very happy about
course, of course.
that. So anyway, just
I
to
just want to emphasize to our listeners what beautiful country this is for walking. I know Bra well. It's a wonderful town to begin in, a town I'm sure Cinzia enjoys for its cheese, famous for the
Cheese.
cheese, slow food cheese fair that happens. Is it every other year?
It's just been a few weeks ago. It was on cheese in
Ah,
Bar.
right.
You might
A
have missed it.
wonderful, wonderful
I was
event
there.
then. All right. And also, of course, the home of slow food. And I think this is sounds like slow walking, walking intentionally, as in slow food, to when one eats intentionally and really wants to appreciate what goes into real food. And I think this walking sounds like slow walking, the way you're setting this up, so people can really experience through the landscape, through actually feeling the landscape in your legs and encountering these small, delightful towns and hamlets that thread their way through the Roero wine zone into, I'm assuming then you move into the Langhe, into Barolo, into Barbaresco as well.
This particular walk finishes in the city of Alba, and then from there you can then extend into Barbaresco and into the Langhe of Barolo as well. So Alba is the hub of all that. And you asked, Mark, if
Yes,
we
wonderful.
do guided tours as well, and the answer to that is yes. We do classic wine tours as well. So we take small groups on bespoke trips all over Italy, really, but thinking specifically about Barolo and the Langhe Roero region. We stay in lovely hotels and eat in great restaurants. And there's optional walking as well. If anyone wants to do some hiking, then we always have an accompanied hike component. That's not obligatory. It's not like the self-guided walking. And visit wineries, of course. Visit some.
Okay, so that's a more wine focused tour.
Yes, it is.
Those
Yes,
guided
indeed.
tours are more, yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
Interestingly, on the food front, we eat in some really lovely restaurants. So, for example, Piazza Duomo, which is the three Michelin star place in the centre of
wonderful.
Alba, and other fine establishments. But really, what people love is Cinzia's legendary picnics. So, and that might be off a plastic plate with a plastic knife and fork in the vineyard. But that's the meal that always stands out in people's memories, and our guests
No,
always
no.
say how much they
We
enjoy
use
it at the end.
proper
Oh
cutlery,
yeah, we do
not
use proper.
plastic one. We don't like plastic.
I'm
Okay.
elaborating for
Sorry.
poetic effect, but yeah, we do use proper cutlery.
No, I can imagine in the most idyllic position to have a one of Cinzia's picnics with products that have been carefully selected, and no doubt with some very nice bottles to accompany that, James.
Yeah,
That I can
absolutely.
understand why that will even trump a dinner in Piazza Duomo.
So one thing we also include in all of our trips, both accompanied and non-walking and self-guided walking and cycling too, is at least one tutored tasting of regional wines with me and a selection of cheeses with Cinzia as well. And that's always a highlight and something special that we offer too.
Yeah, that sounds like a really, really important and lovely feature to have on all of these tours. I'm sure what you're doing is of great interest to our listeners. How can they get in contact with you? What's the best way?
So if you hop on our website, the website is travelandwine.co.uk, and there's a contact form and a mailing list to sign up to. We're on Instagram. My Instagram is James MacNay, and the business one is MacNay _and_ travel. I can't remember. I can't remember, Mark, what the Instagram handle of the travel and wine one is, but it definitely exists. And our email addresses are james@travelandwine.co.uk and cinzia@travelandwine.co.uk.
Okay, well, that's great. And it's really been great to hear your story of how you met, how you worked together, how you found a way to make a life doing the things you love, working in hospitality, walking tours, wine, cheese, and all the good things in life. So, as I say, I think our listeners will be very interested to know more. And I would love to join you on one of your walking tours.
Well, thank you very
Okay,
much for having us. It's been lovely
would
speaking to
be
you. Thank you for your interest. And we would absolutely love to have you join us sometime on one of our hikes, or even if you're in the area, we could for a hike somewhere around here as well.
yeah. Thank you, Mark,
That
and
would be
it would be
fun.
really nice to meet you as well because I never met you, and you are very welcome to come. We can have a nice, maybe a little bit of walking. It seems you like walking, hiking, and maybe a nice meal somewhere.
That sounds wonderful. Well, let's try to make that happen. But in the meantime, thanks again to both of you for being our guests today. And I hope to see you soon. Grazie.
Grazie,
Grazie a te,
grazie,
Mark.
Mark.
Alla prossima.
Ciao, grazie.
Alla prossima. We hope today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast has transported you to somewhere special. Please remember to like, share and subscribe wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at italianwinepodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.